Consumers, to your point, continue to spend, but they're more intentional about where and how they spend.
Welcome to the TreppWire Podcast, the show where commercial real estate meets data and insights. This is a special guest podcast. I'm Haley Keene with Trepp, a data modeling and analytics firm for the CMBS, commercial real estate, and CLO markets. I'm with Lonnie Hendry, Chief Product Officer. Today, we're joined by Justin Stein, Executive Vice President and Chief Revenue Officer at Tanger. Justin leads Tanger's enterprise-wide revenue strategy, overseeing leasing, specialty leasing, and ancillary revenue initiatives across the portfolio. Justin has been at the forefront of one of the company's most significant transformations. For years, Tanger was synonymous with outlet retail, and today the company is expanding into lifestyle centers, investing in experiential retail, and redefining what modern open-air shopping looks like. Justin, we loved having you speak at our Trepp Connect conference back in May, and now we're so excited that you're joining us on the TreppWire podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
You gave a lot of great insights to our audience at Trepp Connect, and we know that you'll do the same here today. So why don't we start from hearing from you about your background? You've been in real estate for over 20 years now. Why don't you walk us through your journey and how you landed at your role in Tanger, and then maybe what led you to the industry in the first place?
Sure. So I started on the brokerage side of the business. Actually, my first job was leasing industrial space. And what I realized very quickly was that I loved real estate, but I didn't like industrial, but I knew I wanted to be in this business. And so I quickly transitioned into the retail side of our business, and I was a broker for about 8.5 years. After that, I worked for Simon Property Group for about a decade, leasing malls and outlets and some of their mill centers. And then I had a focus on handling big banks of business, restructuring, and bankruptcies. And then that's what led me to the opportunity at Tanger, where I first started as the Executive Vice President of Leasing. And then this past January was graciously offered the promotion of Chief Revenue Officer of the organization. And, taking a step back, for me, this started with a passion for retail, not just real estate. And what I learned very early on is that every deal is about people first, and it's about relationships. And specifically about Tanger, the Tanger opportunity was very intriguing to me because it's an iconic brand with a very, very strong culture. And it was a great opportunity to shape the next chapter in Tanger's journey.
That's great, Justin. And I think your perspective of being a broker for so long has to help you in your current role. And we'll maybe dig into that a little bit later in the show here. I love that you say that, real estate by definition is a people business and retail specifically. So maybe give us just some examples. I mean, you're dealing with large corporations at your centers, but ultimately they're selling to individuals that come to the store. So like you're helping facilitate that relationship, the gathering of people, the combination of the right tenant mix, et cetera, et cetera. What do you mean when you say it's relationship driven? Just give us a little perspective on that.
Sure. Well, what excites me, and probably I speak for the entire Tanger leasing department about, what we enjoy so much about retail and the real estate sectors is the relationships. And, retail changes every single day. And consumer behavior never stands still. And so the reality is that, this business being so relationship driven, I mean, you could talk to anybody in the leasing department. I always tell them, you got to get out. We have to be in front of the brands. We have to be in their offices. We have to meet them on property. It's all about making the deals, establishing the relationships, because at the end of the day, people want to do business with people they like and people they trust. And there's no better way of doing that than being together in person and not being behind a computer in a small 3-inch by 3-inch box. So we feel that it's really important to out hustle everybody else that's out there and get in front of our brands day in and day out.
I think it's great advice, and I think it's a reason you guys have been successful, and I fully agree with you. I think in-person meetings is underrated. If you want to drive successful growth, you have to be eating lunch with people. You have to be shaking hands with them. You have to get to know them at a personal level. So it's great to hear that that's the strategy, and I think your background in leasing certainly lends itself to that type of day-to-day grind, because it is, right? So let me just transition a little bit back to Tanger broadly. I think if people hear the word Tanger in a real estate context, they think immediately immediately of like outlet retail, because forever that was predominantly what Tanger was known for. But if you look at the company today, it's much different. And, Haley read on the intro, some of the things you guys have gotten yourself involved with. Just describe the evolution. What was the impetus at the beginning of that transition, and what does the future look like?
Sure. Well, COVID really changed the way we went about our business, because what we learned specifically in the geographies that we operate in, we have centers all over the country, but we're headquartered in Greensboro, North Carolina, and a lot of our centers are in the Sun Belt region in the Southeast. And what we learned about people wanted to continue to shop open air shopping centers. They wanted a one-stop shop. They wanted places where they could live, work, shop, dine, and play all in one experience. And so that gave us the opportunity to take a step back and think differently about how we historically have done our leasing. And so what you may have noticed when you visit a Tanger center more recently, you have more entertainment options. You have more dining options. You have more experiential retail opportunities and options throughout our centers, because what we noticed is like we were really good at snack food, and snack food is critically important. But when it came to lunchtime or dinner time, we noticed that people were leaving, and when they leave, they weren't coming back. And so what we quickly did is we built a food, beverage, and entertainment team to focus on our inline food and beverage and adding quick service restaurants. We hired someone to activate and monetize our peripheral land to put full service restaurant uses out there. And so our job is to drive traffic to our centers. Our tenants' job is to convert that traffic into sale. And so we take that very seriously. And so when you visit a Tanger center now, you're going to see a lot more food, beverage, and entertainment options, which is keeping people on campus longer. The longer we keep them on campus, the more they're going to spend. And the data shows that. And we feel like we're executing to that really, really well.
I think you guys have picked up on a central theme that shoppers want a different experience than they did 20 years ago. To your point, they want to have some of that experiential retail. They want to be able to bring their kids. They want to be able to sit down and grab a quick bite, but not snack food. And that translates into higher foot traffic, more sales. People, to your point, if they get in their car and leave, the odds of them coming back after lunch are not very great. So it's great that you guys have picked up on that. I know there's been some recent acquisitions, Bridge Street Town Center, Pinecrest, Levi's Commons, and the Promenade at Chanel. Were those strategic in this kind of new vein? Or did maybe they already have some of that composition, or have you quickly brought in the new Tanger philosophy? Give us some insight on some of those transactions.
Sure. Those acquisitions that you mentioned were a natural extension of our platform. We feel that we lease and manage and market and operate as good, if not any better than anybody in the country. And so, like I said, this was a natural extension of what we were doing. The same operating strengths apply. And, when you take a look at the tenant mix that you see in full price centers and you see in outlet centers, they're very similar. With that being said, it did open the door for us to have access and visibility to some brands that historically have not been in the outlet channel. Brands like Madewell or Rowan or Goriana or Lego. And so now we have these relationships with some brands that we can explain to them how we're evolving our outlet channel. Because if you take a look at our outlet channel throughout the country, we're lifestyling a lot of our outlet centers. And so now we're getting to educate them on our evolution. And now we have the ability to not only put them in those 4 centers that you mentioned, but the other 38 centers throughout our portfolio. And so it gives us an opportunity to broaden our retailer relationships, diversify our portfolio, and bring in new brands to our outlet channel that historically haven't been with us. So that extension and that evolution into the full price properties has really been beneficial for not only Tanger, but the brands itself, because it gives them another opportunity to reach consumers that historically they haven't reached in the past.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, especially with your guys' scale. If you have 38, centers that they could additionally move into, you're adding significant, scale to them with a platform that's proven itself to be viable, right? And so, I know when you were at our Trepp Connect event, you talked a little bit about the evolution of some of the retailers where they actually have made for outlet type of consumables. Is there a way you can kind of give us a little bit of color on that? So like when we hear the term outlet as a consumer, sometimes you're automatically thinking these are just like the discounted items that didn't sell at the premium store. But it feels like, you said there's some different strategies related to that.
Well, I love the question because I think this is really important to get across to the listeners here and that's the beauty of the outlet channel. People use it in so many different ways and for different reasons. You mentioned MFO, made for outlet. There's some brands that produce the product that they only sell in the outlet channel, that they don't sell in their full price enclosed regional mall down the street. Brands like Coach, MFO. Now they're starting to mix in some of their full price product into their outlet experience, their shopping experience for consumers, because they feel once they get that consumer in there, they can upsell them on some of the new product. But Coach has been known for MFO. So that's one way somebody uses the outlet channel. Nike uses it in a totally different way. Nike will take their best selling product from the year before, make it the exact same way, and just sell it at a discount the next year. And that's how they use the outlet channel. And some brands use it to clear merchandise to keep their full price channel clean. So you go over to the next season, they want to get that product out of the full price center, they move it to the outlet, and it gets sold that way. So that's the beauty of our channel. It's used in so many unique ways, and we're flexible as operators and landlords to work with our tenants to use it in a lot of different ways. And I think that's the beauty of our channel.
Yeah, and it's great as a consumer because you're getting the benefit of each of those specific strategies. Like I have too many shoes, too many Jordans. I mean, like I'm embarrassed to say how many I have on the show, but I like to use the Nike outlet because to your point, like you can get last year's shoe, they're probably 60% off, and they have some really awesome finds in there that you're going to have a hard time finding in the pure retail space because my size is a pretty common size. They're not there, and you can scoop them up at a discount. So like I frequent the Nike outlets quite a bit because for what I like, they have a large assortment of those types of shoes at a really great price. And so that's a great opportunity for me. I mean, I know my kids wear Crocs, and so they always have buy one, get one 50% off or something at the outlet centers for them. And so there's a whole litany of use cases where like that specific channel resonates with someone that has a family that needs to go in and get back to school, clothes shopping or whatever the case. Or if you want some higher end, Madewell, as you mentioned, like that's a great get for Tanger. They have a very good brand reputation on the non-outlet side, and sure adds a whole new set of shoppers to your registry.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And by the way, I will challenge your sneaker fetish with mine any day of the week because I'm in the same boat as you. I cannot find enough space in my closet to fit my sneakers. But listen, with all the great brands we work with, we have a lot of options to go shop. But you're right. What we like to say is that we operate at the intersection of brand and value, and our consumer is really smart. They come to our centers. They're not just looking for a pair of leggings. They know when they come and shop, they want a pair of Aloe or Viore or Lululemon, or they're coming for a sneaker. They know they want Nike, Adidas, New Balance, Under Armour, Puma, whoever it may be. So they care about the world's best brands at the best possible value, and that's why you shop Tanger.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a great job of that intersection of connecting the dots there. So you mentioned the food and beverage and that being kind of a point of emphasis. Just give us a little better understanding of what does that actually mean? I mean, do you have some sit down restaurants now in your inline spaces? Are these, names we would recognize? Are these more local or regional type of food providers? Like what does a food and beverage experience at Tanger look like today?
Great question. So we curate the right mix of local, regional, and national brands at all of our center, specifically when it comes to food and beverage. And so, like you think about some of the deals we executed over the past 12 to 18 months from a food and beverage component. I'm sure you know all of these, from Dave's Hot Chicken to First Watch to Habit Burger, Portillo's, Qdoba, Shake Shack, Sweet Paris Creperie, the Chop House. I can keep going. We've built this food and beverage team that is on fire right now, and they're doing exactly the intent of what we brought them in for. And they're listening to the consumers. They're listening to the shoppers. We have our ear to the ground in every single market. And you take a look at a project that we built from the ground up about 3.5 to 4 years ago in Nashville. We built an amazing outlet center in Nashville, and we curated what I believe is the perfect food and beverage mix. We could have went with all national brands, but we feel it's critically important to lease to and listen to what the market wants. And since we're such a big part of the communities we serve, we want to make sure we have local, regional, and national players. We went with a great, fantastic a coffee operator. Could have went with a national player there, but we went with a local coffee operator at Nashville. We went with like a regional brewery with Tailgate Brewery, and we went with Shake Shack, a well-known national brand. That's 3 of our 8 or 9 food and beverage offerings at the center. We built about 25,000 square feet of F&B, our largest amount of F&B in one outlet center anywhere in the country. It seems to be working out well. We're seeing increased dwell time. We're seeing increased spend. We're seeing our sales per square foot increase year in and year out. And so the F&B component, specifically at Nashville and other places throughout the country, seems to be working out extremely well.
And I think Nashville's a great market to test that out because there are certain markets that are more foodie driven, where people, if they don't see a local player or they don't see some regional players, they're probably going to go seek those out somewhere else. Like the national scene is not what drives their motivation. But at the same time, you have people that are traveling from out of town to Nashville where they want to see and recognize Shake Shack as an example of something that they know they love. And so like for me as a consumer, like the role food and beverage has played in the retail experience can't be understated. I mean, I think it's a very underappreciated part of the ecosystem. And it sounds like you guys have fully tapped into that, which is really great.
Yeah, and the other thing it does, Lonnie, it drives visits to the center at different times throughout the day. And so now we have this more consistency of traffic coming in the morning for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. And then it makes the centers more relevant to the communities we serve by focusing on the local brands as well as the regional brands.
Yeah, I think it's a great strategic move for you guys. Now, you mentioned a little bit you had like a food and beverage team. Just give us a little perspective on how that's set up. And we've talked a lot about leasing and that being the lifeblood of the center. Do you have folks that are focused on like your historical traditional retail tenants and you have like groups that are focused on food and beverage? Do you have folks that are locally focused or are they, do your teams have a national footprint? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, all of the above, right? So let's start where the rubber meets the road at our centers. We have a team of 4 people that run every single center, from marketing and general manager and local leasing people. So that's who's listening to the consumer. And so they're leasing from a local level. Then we have our national leasing department. We have some people that are focused on accounts, meaning somebody has Nike and Adidas and Under Armour throughout the country. We have certain people that focus on our full price side, asset level leasing. And then we have our food and beverage team. That is made up of, I said, 4 individuals. We have some of the people that are focused on activating and monetizing our peripheral land, so our parking lots. We will sit on 30 acres of maybe 50 acres of properties because we have a lot of parking. Well, how do we activate and monetize that land to drive more people to the center? And so we have people that are building gyms, right? Focus on leasing to gyms or doggy daycares, our full service sit down restaurants. That's what we're doing on our peripheral land. And then we have a team of people focused on our inline, what we call our inline food and beverage. So that's the snack food operators like Jamba Juice or Annie Ann's. And then we have quick service restaurant concepts that are starting to open in the 4 walls of our center. So we have it all covered.
Oh, that's great. And on the peripheral end, I mean, so you guys wholly own everything where you just lease pad sites to tenants, or do you actually sell off some pads to like strategic players that maybe drive some, significant upside on the foot traffic or consumer side?
Yeah, great question. We are actually more in acquisition mode of that piece of our business. And so we own the properties that we lease and manage for the most part. There's a handful that are partnership properties, but the reality is that, we're adding a lot of value to the markets that we're in and the communities that we serve. And, we are in acquisition mode to expand our footprint throughout the country. And we are looking for maybe parcels of the property that are in and around our centers to buy and maybe enhance the leasing in those and add value to not only the communities we serve, but to our properties that sit right behind these parcels, as you call it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think it's impressive to see just how connected you guys are to the market trends. I mean, you definitely said you have your, ear to the ground, and it feels like it because there's a lot of value creation just in assembling the right component parts. It may not be something that's directly attached to your inline space, but it can drive significant upside for the value of the center, right? So let's go back to COVID. I think leading up to COVID, at least on our show and in our data, there was this whole talk track about the retail apocalypse, and everyone was like down on retail, and it was just all negative. Obviously, things have shifted. If you survived COVID, it identified a couple of things. One, you were able to pivot. Retail has transitioned into kind of a omni-channel marketplace where you have to have some online, some bricks and mortar, some curbside, whatever the case may be. How have your tenant discussions changed? I mean, obviously you're dealing with people now that have survived COVID. Are they making different requests of your team? Are they more savvy? Are they more nervous around long-term leases? Like, just what are some talking points or sticking points or things that have gotten better through this transition?
Yeah, coming out of COVID, I'd say omni-channel is expected. You mentioned omni-channel. It is expected more than ever. I believe brands are much more analytical than they ever have been before. Store productivity post-COVID matters way more than store count. So they're focused on how to become more productive within each of their stores. I mean, you take a look at what we've done post-COVID. Take a brand that operated in 8,000 square feet at one of our centers. We've worked with them to downsize and right-size that particular store to 4,500 square feet. They're actually doing more gross sales in a smaller footprint than they were before. And so better gross sales for them, better sales per square foot, helps our metrics out, helps theirs out, gives us another space back to lease that we can lease it to an 8,000 square foot user, or maybe chop that up into 2 or 3 spaces. So it's a win-win for all. And I'd say this, coming out of COVID, retailers value landlords who help drive traffic. Hard stop. And so we feel we execute to that in a really strong way. We feel like we're great at marketing. We have a Tanger loyalty program that we recently rolled out that has been driving traffic to our centers. And so at the end of the day, like I said in the beginning, it's our job to drive traffic. It's the brand's job to convert that traffic. And that's what makes the Tanger retailer relationship so successful.
You guys sit on a ton of data given your footprint and scale. And it sounds like, if your tenants are using analytics and data and insights at a level that they didn't before, I would assume you guys are doing the same thing. How has that shifted just in the landscape of your role, going from like a leasing broker, where you're focused on the transaction, now you're managing an entire portfolio and you have all of this available data. How are you guys leveraging that in a way that moves the company forward?
Yeah, we are a data-led leasing team. We are very vocal about that with our brands and to the public community. You take a look at, I can give you like a case study that we did with a retailer who recently opened up with us in Birkenstock. Okay, they partnered with us and we merged their data with ours. And so we put this algorithm together that showed us where their online sales were coming from, where their wholesale business was coming from, mixed that with our data analytics, and it spit out like a top 10 list. And our two centers at the top of that list, once we merged our data together, you couldn't come more opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of a shopper profile. One was in Phoenix, Arizona, and one was in Sevierville, Tennessee. Well, we started slowly because we believe in crawl, walk, run with some of our newer brands to our portfolio, and we opened one up in Phoenix, and it was wildly successful. Then we moved on to the next one in Sevierville, Tennessee. That was a success. And so now we continued to move down. We went to our third one in Long Island, Deer Park, Long Island. And so now we've gained trust with this brand. They understand that we're not just saying, well, if you open up this one, you got to go open up 7 or 8 more with us. We're, like I said, crawl, walk, run. Let's take this relationship slow. Let's make sure that your product resonates with our consumer. And in that example with Birkenstock, it did just that. And so now we've had this trusting relationship driven by data, driven by people. And that's how we think about growing our business here at Tanger.
That's great. And it goes back to the relationship part. I mean, that's you're building that trust, and that comes organically when you're doing things that the data suggests at a crawl, walk, run type of pace. I mean, that's perfect. So you talked a little bit about your loyalty program that you just launched. I would assume that helps engagement and helps get foot traffic and repeat customers. Just what does that look like, and how does that, I would assume from a marketing perspective, it really helps. Just give me some understanding of how that plays out.
Sure. So think about it like an airline app, right? Where like the more you fly, the higher status you earn. Like I'm a United guy and I love my Premier 1K. And so like I strive to maintain that status every year. So the more you spend, the greater the discount you get by the brand. Our loyalty program is driven by the brand. The brand set the discount. And so the more you spend, the better discount you'll get at Under Armour or Nike or you name the brand. And so since the brands set the discounts, we're in it together to help drive traffic to the brands. We share the data back with them of who they're cross-shopping with. And that's invaluable data for us to learn, because if I want to get a certain brand to open up at Grand Rapids, Michigan, in one of our centers there, and I can say, well, listen, there's a lot of cross-shopping happening, between you, tenant X and tenant Y. Let's go take a look at Grand Rapids because that preferred co-tenant is operating at a very high level. So, receiving that data and sharing that data and understanding that data and driving people back to the stores and targeting the consumers for the brands that they want. Because at the end of the day, Lonnie, it's really important. We're in the business of training people to open up their emails, not delete them, because we all are inundated with all these emails from brands that maybe you haven't even shopped in 4 or 5 years. Well, I know you. Right? You're going to delete that email when you see it because you haven't shopped there in 4 or 5 years. But if we can train you to open the email and understand some of these discounts that are being offered to you, whether it's through the app or through the email program that we have, that's how we're thinking about marketing, very targeted. And then that's how we're driving consumers and shoppers to the center and getting that best conversion rate we can with our brand partners.
I think it's great. We do the same thing here. I mean, we're laughing as we're recording this because that's what our team does. And it's, you have to have the underlying data to be able to execute on that, which you guys obviously have at this point. And so, maybe as we kind of, bring this towards an end, a couple more questions. On the consumer side, I mean, we've talked on our weekly show now for the last couple of years at just how surprised we are as a group of the resiliency of the American consumer. I mean, despite COVID, inflation, tariffs, interest rates on the commercial real estate and residential real estate side, student loans being in forbearance, then coming back, and all these things that you would think any one of those potentially could derail consumers. They continue to shop and they continue to spend. I mean, I would assume you're seeing that as well, but do you have just any general thoughts around the resiliency of consumers? Do you guys have any concerns about that going forward? What does that look like?
Yeah, we're very dialed into this. And I'd say these 3 things. 1, consumers, to your point, continue to spend, but they're more intentional about where and how they spend. 2, value has become this like permanent mindset, not just a reaction to inflation. And that's where I think Tanger is set up very well for the future. And 3, shoppers are prioritizing a few things: quality, trusted brands, and products they feel are worth the investment. And so that's why we are so intentional about our merchandising strategy, about who we bring into our centers, where we situate them, because our shoppers demand it, and we feel like we execute to that very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the value play can't be understated, and across every aspect of spending at this point. I mean, everything. I mean, if you go out to just get a quick bite to eat at a drive-through, if you have anyone with you, 2 or 3 people, you're $50-$60 into it by the time you get through the drive-through. I mean, it's unbelievable the times we're living in. So value has to be, and I think the excellence and execution, to your point, is very important as well. So we've covered a lot of the transition from COVID to now over the last 5+ years or so. If we were to look ahead the next 5 years, what does this next evolution look like? Because as you mentioned, you said retail is changing every single day. What you do today is not going to be as successful 5 years from now. What does the future look like for retail real estate?
We see tremendous opportunity with our organic growth, meaning with our core existing portfolio. We think that there's tremendous upside in that, and it's why I'm encouraging people to invest in Tanger, because we see a tremendous upside organically. Continuing to activate and monetize our peripheral land, as I mentioned, is another opportunity for us. Acquisitions, we are very active in the acquisition world today, and you never know. If the right opportunity comes up for development, that is on the table, as we talked about Nashville that we did a couple of years ago today. So, we're also looking at opportunities out there where there's like third-party management and leasing today, where we feel like we can use our scale and our infrastructure to add value to centers like that. So we see tremendous opportunity out there to grow our business, both organically and through acquisitions and development.
as we were talking today, I mean, to your last point on the management and third party stuff, I mean, you guys are already executing at an incredibly high level, and you have all of the data and you have the geographic footprint and the tenant relationships. You would be able to, I would think have some pretty significant upside on that part if you decided to start offering that. And the development stuff is interesting. I mean, we've talked to a lot of developers. That's a whole nother part of commercial real estate. I mean, the time value of money and just shovels in the ground, just turning that into dollars, as you've done it in Nashville. I mean, that's a very intriguing, because you can hit some home runs there, but it's subject to a lot more macro impact. So we'll definitely be keeping our eyes open and watching Tanger. I guess last question for me, and then Haley will take us out. You started off as a leasing broker, and now you have a C-suite position, at a publicly traded company. What is some advice that you would give people, at various stages of their career? If someone was starting out, is there something that you think is more important for them as you kind of climb the ladder? What becomes important? Like, what would you tell our audience has benefited you and you maybe pass down to somebody if you were talking to them about their career trajectory in commercial real estate?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm going to say this, and I know a lot of people in our organization are going to listen to this, and they're going to say, I've heard this one, but I always say, never be out hustled. At the end of the day, there may be people that are smarter than you, went to better schools than you, but at the end of the day, you can't beat grit. You can't beat determination. You can't beat someone that's going to out hustle you. Be the first one in the office, be the last one to leave. And at the end of the day, we talked about this throughout this podcast. This is a relationship business. People want to do business with people they like and people they trust. And in our business, you have two things: your time and your reputation. Both are equally as important to me. And I tell our team all the time, focus on those things. At the end of the day, it's going to lead us to success. And that has at Tanger over the last 4 or 5 years since we established this new leadership team and how we're thinking about our business.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can add anything to that. I agree and subscribe to that. On my team at Trepp, we operate under the hashtag team whatever it takes, because that's what it takes to be successful. You got to do whatever it takes, as long as it's not illegal and it's moral and it's all good. Hard work is expected. Extra effort is expected, because that's what it takes to be successful. So I think that's a really great perspective and insight.
Well, I'm going to write down what you just said. I'm going to use that, but I'll give you credit.
I love it. As you were just saying that, Justin, I'm like, this is very similar to Lonnie's mentality as well. So it's great. And it's clear in your passion and how much you care about the business that you really are pushing everyone forward. So thank you so much for sharing your insights today. It's really making me want to run out and go to the Deer Park or Riverhead Tanger outlets, but I'll wait till after work. Before we close, can you just tell our listeners how they can either get in touch with you to learn more about your role or the Tanger business in general?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, or anyone can drop me an email at my initials, js@tanger.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Justin. This has been an excellent episode, and we love hearing from the behind the scenes of what you all do at Tanger. It's great to see your growth, and we look forward to following along with the journey.
Thank you.
With that, we'll close this special podcast. Thank you, Justin, for joining us today. Join us later this week as we look at what's happened during the week and how it may be impacting you. If you have a question or just a comment, send an email to podcast@trepp.com. Until then, visit trepp.com for more info and subscribe to the TreppWire Podcast with your favorite provider. Thank you for listening and stay well.
All right.